Hey everybody, welcome to the final roundup of 2025. I hope everybody has a great new year and has a fun, safe time, but let's jump in and see what's been going on in the past week. First up, Crix just released a new version of the Game Boy Advance Everdrive that he's calling the Everdrive GBA Pro. And this is a more expensive version of the GBA Everdrive Mini that has a bunch of other features like save state support with an in-game menu and up to 98 save states per game, light, tilt, and gyro sensors, real-time clock support with the option for isolated per-game clocks, MGBA format cheat support, menu themes, extremely fast ROM loading, and emulation of the original Game Boy Color, and NES. So this comes in at $130 versus the original Mini's $99 price tag. And if these are features that you use on your Game Boy Advance, then it's obviously worth the extra $30. And if not, get the cheaper one or just keep the one that you already own. But awesome to see Crix keep putting out new stuff like this. Check out Alex's post for links and all the details. But I also think it might have had a small first run of production and then it's coming back in stock soon. So if you see out of stock, don't worry, it should be back before you know it. Tito from Macho Nacho Productions recently posted a video about rebuilding an original Virtual Boy, which I think is well timed because the Nintendo Switch Online version of that's coming out next month, I believe. And Tito went through all of the stuff that everybody with a Virtual Boy is already aware of. How to deal with the ribbon cables, what to do if the lenses crack, and basically, this is just another great overview of what to do and what to expect in those scenarios. And it's also a really good indication as to why some of you might want to just have this done as a paid service rather than try to do it yourself. I don't think I ever attempted this, although I did a couple of other Virtual Boy mods, and it just wasn't nearly as easy as so many other mods out there. Of course, if you're a pro modder, you're probably scoffing at that comment, but that's why you're a pro modder, not me. So that's totally fine. But yeah, links to everything Tito talked about in the video are here. And I also just wanted to reiterate how many homebrew things are out there for the Virtual Boy, both hardware and games and software as well. I did that live stream 4 years ago now almost, and it's still totally relevant. A lot of the hardware accessories I talked about, which is just the first 15 minutes of that, are really things that I think most people would be interested in. And Tito even covered a bunch of them. And then the end of that live stream, we just showed off all the awesome homebrew. So yeah, if you're a fan of the Virtual Boy, and especially if you were thinking of doing one of those ribbon replacements, or if you want to see exactly what parts are out there to do so, definitely check out this video. Frank Cifaldi from the Video Game History Foundation recently posted a documentary about the untold story of the NES launch. And Frank really dug into the prototypes, how the whole ideas came about, and really drove the point home that for all intents and purposes, Nintendo should not have done this. Everybody was telling them not to do it, that it was the wrong time to do it. And it really just took some pretty creative negotiating with some of the stores and just a lot of guts to make it happen. So absolutely check that out. And if you're into this stuff, Frank actually did a panel about the 40th anniversary of the NES launch with a bunch of original NES employees that were there. I haven't had time to watch that one yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. Now, it is available as an audio-only podcast, but there are some visual examples that Frank really felt would be worth seeing. So this is one of those things where if you're like me and you really only have time to listen to this stuff via podcast, fine. But if you enjoy sitting down and watching something like this, then definitely do so and don't listen to the audio version. But yep, links to the documentary are all right here, and I really liked it. And speaking of Frank Cifaldi, I just posted an interview podcast with him that focused a lot on the Sega Channel stuff they've been releasing over the past couple of weeks, including the documentary that Phil had posted. And it was really cool to get the behind-the-scenes stories of how a lot of those assets came about, how they were able to find them, how they were able to recover them. So by the way, any of my fellow old-school IT nerds with tape backup software knowledge, please watch this or listen to this podcast, and maybe you could reach out and help with recover some of the stuff that they found. But I just really enjoyed this talk. And I told Frank right off the bat, this was mostly curiosity on my own part, but also a little bit of laziness here, because there was just so much stuff to cover that I didn't think I was going to be able to do a good enough job kind of going over everything they found in regards to the Sega channel. And I saw a bunch of other blog posts and videos that covered it in a more general way. So, Video Game History Foundation found some cool stuff. Here's the link, which is great because that gets the word out there. I've also seen other channels focus in on some of the individual ROMs and games that were found that were never before seen or had newer versions or stuff like that, which is also awesome. But I just wanted to go about it a different way and figured, why don't I just talk to Frank and share that conversation with everybody? So as always, all of these long form chats are available anywhere you could find podcasts. Basically, just search your favorite app for RetroRGB, Cifaldi, or just Frank. I'm not sure if I interviewed any other Franks that might pop up there, but that's it. And this is, a talk podcast, so there's no crazy visual examples like with the 40th anniversary panel that Frank did. Really, however you like to listen to these, I don't care, and I mean that with love. Just I like that people enjoy these conversations. I wish I had time to do a lot more, and Frank's always a good person to talk to because he's got a gazillion cool stories. So please check it out if you're interested, and of course, please watch that Sega Channel documentary because that was really neat, both on the history of it and the stuff that they've been finding. And speaking of the Sega Channel, developer Shane Lynch just created a Mister core that allows you to experience it on any Mister with a 128 megabyte RAM stick. This is done using the ROM pack built by Billy Time Games, and everything's available to download right from the same link. And the only downside at the moment is currently saves are not working, but that might be updated in the future. I did a full written guide on how to install everything, and it's all pretty basic. You just have to know where everything goes, and it only took a couple of minutes to set it all up. And then once it's all done, you launch the core exactly like you would any console core, and then go right in and launch whatever month collection that was available as a bin file, and it'll load up exactly like that month's Sega Channel ROM, which is really awesome because this is a fun way to just experience how this could have been if you had it as a kid. I definitely didn't, both because we could definitely not have afforded it, but also I didn't live in an area with Time Warner cable, so it wasn't a choice anyway. And also, Billy also in the same link in the same download section offers Raspberry Pi images as well. So you could do that with a Raspberry Pi if you don't have a Mister. And I do believe MAME also added support for it, as well as some other software emulators. So this isn't locked to a Mister, but I would be willing to bet anybody who has a Mister setup and a 128 megabyte RAM stick would rather do it this way and have kind of a fun, especially on CRT setup, if that's how you run your Mister, just a fun way to recreate it. Now, I just want to reiterate the 128 megabyte RAM stick thing because I could not get this working. I kept having black screens come up. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I messaged both Shane and Billy, and then I realized that the icon when you boot your Mister shows what RAM stick you have. It's kind of like a little fuel tank, and if it's all black, then it's a 128, and if it's only partially filled, then it's a 32 megabyte. And I went, well, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. And I took my Mister apart, and apparently I had a 32 megabyte RAM stick in it. And the only thing I could think of, the only possible way I could have ended up with this in my main Mister is when I was messing around with the dual RAM setups and swapping cases around. I think I mixed up which RAM stick was which, because in a dual RAM Mister setup, the second RAM stick, you don't need anything more than the 32 megabyte one. It just won't be used, so anything more would be a waste. So I'm pretty sure I had a 128 in the main slot and a 32 in the other, and when I did case swaps, I just screwed up and put the wrong one in the wrong case. So yeah, I have an extra Mister setup I'll be selling relatively soon, and it'll unfortunately be coming with a 32 megabyte RAM stick because that's all I have. So yeah, don't make the same mistake that I did. If it boots to a black screen, that's what happened. But yeah, so links to everything as well as instructions are right in the post. And once again, thanks to Shane and Billy, both for doing this and for patiently answering my stupid questions that turned out to just be my fault anyway. The absolutely awesome PlayStation 1 software emulator called Duckstation just released a toggle option that allows you to switch between the original GPU and the one that was used in most of the revisions of the PS1, as well as the PS2's backward compatibility. And the short version is this is just a fun tool that allows you to see the original and how much better the next rev was of this. It's one of the many reasons why you probably don't want an original PlayStation 1. But But there's some backstory to this, and I want to elaborate a little bit more because the reason that this info has been out for like a decade, but we didn't originally get such good screenshots of it, is in short, capture's really hard when it comes to analog video consoles. So in order to get screenshots like were posted on social media using this emulator, you would need two PlayStation 1s that were both in good condition and had the both different revision GPUs in it. Then you would need to take a capture setup, probably an original OSSC, but maybe even back then it would have been direct capture via the datapath vision, and you would have to have the phase set perfectly on both, as well as the brightness and the color calibration, in order to truly get side-by-side shots to show how bad some of the banding was on the original and to get a real sense of the difference. And now you just fire up this emulator and you could check one box and toggle between them. So from a video game history, video game nerd, curious nerd point of view, this is an absolutely amazing addition that really lets you load up your games and see what a difference the majority of GPUs made versus the original revision. Now, from the point of view of somebody that just wants to play PlayStation 1 games, it's useless because you wouldn't want the original GPU anyway. But I think a lot of us nerds are curious, and even just talking about it in this post might be enough info for most people to go, oh, that's neat. But if you're curious yourself, especially if you have specific games that you're wondering what the difference was, then definitely download this free emulator, toggle the setting, and see for yourself what it is, or what the difference is. I embedded some social media posts in here for anybody that just wants to scroll through and see it. But it's a free emulator, so by all means, do this yourself. See what the differences are. And shout out to the developer Stenzek for doing this, knowing that it's just a fun nerd feature and not something that's going to excite all of the Duckstation users. But my fellow nerds and I are pretty happy about it. So thanks for doing this, and check it out yourself. The developer of Shader Glass just released a new app called Shader Beam that allows you to overlay the Blurbuster's CRT Beam emulation for the purpose of motion blur reduction over basically any Windows app. And much like Shader Glass, it is a really awesome way to try this out, especially trying it out on content that you specifically want to use. If you just want to see the benefits of motion blur reduction using CRT Beam emulation, you could just go to testufo.com/CRT on basically any display over 60 hertz, and you could check it out right there. But it's different seeing it with your own content. An old school software emulator, I guess even TV or movies, depending on what type of stuff that you want to be doing with it. So having a program like this is really, really cool. And I've actually been using Shader Glass for a while. And by the way, my apologies to the developer Mausimus. I have no idea why we haven't covered it here on RetroRGB, or maybe I have and I'm just old and forgetting now, but this is a tool that I find very, very handy. And sometimes I'll just use it to test out CRT mask emulation over a windowed program or a full screen program. And it's something that I've talked about in the Q&As quite a bit for people that just want to mess around with Windows-based software emulation, but still have awesome CRT mask filters as well. Now, Shader Beam works the same way, however, it's a bit more complicated, and if you have two GPUs, you'll get a lot better results. But I want to make sure I'm clear about this. You could even use the integrated GPU in most desktop motherboards, and I guess a ton of laptops as well if you have a dual GPU there, and you don't need anything connected to it. So on my PC here, I have the 5090 card that I reviewed a couple months ago, and I also have a motherboard with built-in video that I normally just disabled in the BIOS. So all I had to do was enable it in the BIOS, not change anything else. My system still runs off the main video card. Everything else is still that way, but you just enable Shader Beam to run on the integrated graphics, allowing it to draw over your main graphics card, and you'll get a lot better performance that way. There's also a ton of other tweaks and things that you're going to want to pay attention to if you want to seriously implement this, where for me, I really just wanted to kind of see it in action because I have the RetroTink 4K Pro, which I just use for CRT beam emulation for a lot of other stuff. But if you want to seriously use it with games, you'll really want to dig into the GitHub and check out all of the different tips and tricks. The only reason I talked about the dual GPU thing is I think it would be easy for people to skip over that and think, I'm not buying a second GPU or I'm not buying a second monitor. And in most cases, you just don't need to. You could just enable something that you already have. So if you want a quick slow motion example of what's happening, check it out there. Of course, if you have it running, or if you own a RetroTink 4K Pro, you could check it out using that as well. And I'm still talking to Mark from Blurbusters about doing a BFI specific anything, video, interview, written interview, whatever. And I will dig into this again, but it is kind of complicated, but tools like Shader Beam make it a heck of a lot easier. So it's free, it's open source, check it out yourself. Check out all of the other links here if you want to just see what this is like. And yeah, thanks again to the dev for now a second awesome app that I'm going to reference all the time. I needed a case for my Raspberry Pi 5 that I wanted to integrate into one of my CRT setups and have it look right at home. So I found this NES themed case called the Game 5 Pi, Geek Pi, whatever, and I wanted to test it out because I wanted a minimalist one, just like the ones that come in some of the official kits. But I also just wanted it to look neat, and I thought this one was going to be the perfect fit, and it is as long as you don't need to constantly leave your LAN cable plugged in, your Ethernet cable. If you just plug it in occasionally or you don't use it at all, you just use the built-in Wi-Fi, then perfect. Obviously, if you have it plugged in all the time, you don't want it hanging out the front of your case. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked it more than a lot of the other cases out there that have all of the internal connections, because those could really wear over time. And I just know how things work in this lab here, and that at some point I'm going to need to take this Pi out and swap it with another one. I don't know why, but it's going to happen. My fellow nerds who test things know, they feel my pain here. So I wanted a simple, minimalist, small case, and this was absolutely what I wanted, and I wanted to just review it and share it with everybody. A couple of things. I don't know what this hole in front is for. Can somebody please let me know out of curiosity? It's even on the box, so it was obviously an intentional design decision. I think I forgot in the video to mention that these buttons in front are just aesthetics. They're not functional. Also, does anybody use the button in back for the Raspberry Pi 5? And supposedly this is only for Pi 5s, but it's the same exact layout as the 4, so maybe that's just referencing the button in back or something, or the fan connectors. I don't really know. The fans are a little loud, but I'm using it with an XM29 that has a much louder fan built in, so I'll never use it. However, you could probably get away with unplugging the case fan, or I guess if you need it, if you live in a hot area or it's installed in a place with not good ventilation, you could probably replace it with a Noctua or something like that. But it also comes with the heatsink and fan as well, which should probably be good enough in most cases. Overall, I just really liked it, and I wanted to do a silly little video on it, which is just basically an assembly video, which none of you need to watch, but if you watch a 4-minute video that saves you 10 minutes, I saved you 6 minutes, so might as well. I had links to absolutely everything I used, including a right angle USB-C adapter that I bought. It's super cheap, and I bought it just because I wanted a clean installation. I show that in the video. But in the Amazon ad, it said rated at full 10 gigabit per second. So, I mean, you all know my nerdiness. Then I had to speed test it, so I did a video on that one too, because why not? But links to absolutely everything are in the post, and I think this is going to be really neat, especially if the new version of the RGB Pi ends up working out well. I could probably leave this integrated in. I also am really looking forward to digging into Replay OS, and even if I end up using my own DAC instead of that one, I think this is going to be a permanent fixture, both for Kodi and for that. And one of the benefits of having a giant spot back here to get the micro SD is I could always just treat it like a cartridge and have one micro SD for Kodi and one for Replay OS. But Replay OS also has a video player in, so I really got to make time to live stream that at some point in the future to dig into what that could do. But anyway, links to everything are in the post, and yeah, if you want a fun Raspberry Pi 5 case and you don't need your Ethernet cable constantly plugged in, this is it. It's less than $20. Now it's time for my ridiculous review of the week. I reviewed the Fuzzy Bear slippers. I absolutely had to, and those have turned out to just be an inside joke staple of all of these videos that I do now. And the truth is, I just wear them as slippers. I thought they were funny, so I bought them a couple of years ago, and they turned out to be really warm and really comfortable, so I just always have them on in the winter. I I just don't like cold feet, I guess. And they always end up sticking out in the videos. So I just figured, you know what? Why not review the stupid slippers? My wife got me another pair for Christmas. I wore through the originals, which I held on to way too long because I knew I was getting a new pair for Christmas, which is why they are the way they are in this video, if you happen to watch it. So yeah, this was just a fun and silly video that made me laugh the whole time I was making it. But I actually do really wear these things every single day. And all of the stuff that wasn't a silly joke is true. I do label them to make sure you wear them in properly. You know, I don't wear them outside, stuff like that. So if you just want nice, warm slippers that are ridiculous and funny, I'd highly recommend these. And if not, maybe watch the video anyway, because I have a weird sense of humor, but it certainly made me laugh pretty hard. So I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with these, and I'm wearing them right now, and you will continue to see these in every single video I do until summertime when I don't need the slippers anymore. Well, that's it for this week. If you're watching this on video and not listening audio only, sorry for all of the brightness color changes, but it snowed recently. So every time the sun comes out from behind the clouds, like it's doing right now, wow, that's pretty cool. It almost was like I planned that, but it reflects off the snow and it's making everything crazy with the camera. I'm going from so dark you could barely see me to so bright I'm all washed out like a unmodded one-chip SNES. So yeah, sorry about that, but I love shooting these with the windows open just because natural light makes me happier. I don't know. But anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks to everybody who has supported for so long. Thanks to everybody who's going to stick with me next year. I'm going to continue to try my best to do as good as I can with all of this stuff. And really, just thank you. Thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and of course, and especially, thank you to everybody who supports, because it really is you who's keeping all this going. So I will see you next year. I know it's the most tired joke ever, but hey, I guess it's true. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.